I want to make a quick video showing the hand tools that I use and what I consider to be the core set of hand tools to make furniture. Starting the list for me as most important is going to be sharpening stones. I like to use oil stones for a couple different reasons. You could have all the planes and chisels in the world and they're not going to do you any good if they're dull. So these are the oil stones. They're important to me, so my oil stones go in a box. Of course, you're going to need some pencils, tape measures for marking stuff out. These little tape measures or the keychain tape measures seem to work really good on the bench. I like them more than like my 30-foot Stanley framing sorts of tape measures. Squares. Gotta have a square. You need a square. These Starretts make nice squares. PEC, P-E-C, makes another really good square. There's probably some other ones. If you know some other good ones that are more budget priced, drop a comment because I'd like to know about it. Marking gauge. This is a combination gauge. It's a pen type. It has a marking gauge on this side and a mortise gauge on this side. These two pins are adjustable for different size mortises. And the wheel type gauges are a little bit more popular these days. And they're awesome, especially for going across the grain. But I'm just not a huge fan of the wheel type gauges going down the grain. So I just stick with the pen type gauges, which I think do well on both. I like this one a lot. Of course, you need a marking knife. This one is just a blade that's glued into a piece of wood. I use it in conjunction with a square for marking out joinery and things like that. Cut lines when they need to be really accurate. And chisels. For chisels, most common sizes I use, 1 inch, 3/8, and 1/4 inch. Those are the most important chisel sizes to me, just good bench chisels. And you need a hammer. This is the Thorex 712 that Paul Sellers has talked a lot about, and I've tried it now and I think it's awesome. Before this one I had a Harbor Freight double-sided hammer, and after I tried this one, that Harbor Freight one went right in the trash. This one is really good. By the way, back to marking knives. After trying that hammer, I wanted to try the Paul Sellers marking knife. It's a Stanley 10049, and I used this thing and I thought there is just no way that he is using this knife. It has a super thick blade. It's held in, I think, by bubble gum. So I looked into it a little more. I don't think he's using that knife. I think he's using this one, and it's a night and day difference between these two knives. Hopefully this comes through on the video, but on this one, it's much thicker blade, and it is loose as all get out. This one, thin blade, and it's perfectly rigid in that knife. This one's good for opening boxes. This one's good for woodworking. What I had been using is this. I think I searched Amazon for Dovetail marking knife, SM00, Swan Morton, and I think it's pretty good. It's a little bit long to me. I mean, it's fine, but these blades are awesome, and that's actually the blade. I take these replacement blades and just stuck in this big piece of wood. Works really well. I like it a lot. But like I said, it's maybe a little bit long, just depending on how you feel. This piece of wood just, fits right in my hand perfectly. For bench planes, the only bench plane that I really need is a number 5. This is my favorite plane. Number 5 jack plane, awesome. It can do it all. It can smooth like a boss. It can joint an edge perfectly. Typically, if you see me use a smoothing plane or a joiner plane, it's probably just because this one needs to be sharpened and I don't feel like sharpening it yet. Joiner planes are really handy to have, but I wouldn't say they're necessary. But probably like 36 inches and longer, I'd like to join an edge with a joiner plane. But most of the stuff, the number 5, you're smooth sailing. And for stock prep, if you're doing stock prep by hand, you would either want another blade that you can have cambered to put in your jack plane, or if you're spoiled rotten, a scrub plane. It's really nice to have just because it's so quick to adjust. And then on to saws. There's basically 3 saws that I think you need for hand tool woodworking. You want a crosscut saw, a rip saw, and a back saw for joinery. For a crosscut saw, I like this 20-inch long. It's 10 points per inch. It makes a great crosscut saw. For rip cuts, this is a 20-inch, 7 points per inch rip saw. So it's not a heavy-duty rip saw, but it works really good for bench work. If you're doing some heavy rips or resawing, you would want a heavier duty saw than this for sure. And for back saw, this back saw is awesome. It's a 15 points per inch, 10 inches long. You cut dovetails, you cut tenons, you cut shoulder lines, any joinery cuts, this will do it. If you're cutting really big tenons, you might run into an issue, but for most of the stuff, this will work great. And for joinery planes, the only joinery plane that I really think is essential is a router plane. Just because a router plane is so versatile, can work for doing tenons, can work for grooves, for rabbets, dados, any joinery, a router plane can do it. So one of the things that's just really great about hand tools is that with a basic kit, you really don't lack for anything. There's some stuff that would be nice to have. If you find yourself cutting a lot of rabbets, then it might be nice to have a rabbet plane. Or if you're doing like furniture rabbets, one of those fenced rabbet planes or a Philister plane would be nice. But not necessary. You could do it with a chisel, with a router plane. I've got a lot of other tools. I've got a bunch of saws and stuff like that, but that's because I have a problem. When I bought that miter saw, I thought I was gonna be using that all the time, but I'll be honest, I hardly use it. And I don't know, it just, to me, I think it looks like a big honking saw that can do some serious work, but when you actually use it, it has probably like an 8 to 10 inch saw stroke, which it makes you just feel like you're doing this choppy work, and it just feels unnatural and kind of weird. I like to be able to just, feel free and just send it. Or the first plane people get is typically a block plane. Personally, I don't really use block planes that much. I might use it once in a while just to preserve the blade on my jack plane, but for heavy duty planing, I feel like it's a little too small. And then for using it on smaller little things, I'd just rather use a chisel. And also coping saws. I'm not a huge fan of coping saws, just because curves, you could cut a concave curve with a chisel just as easily, go and bevel down, or if you're doing a convex curve, you can use a chisel to bevel up to cut that. And to be honest, coping saws, they tend to make really fine, I've tried different blades, and they all tend to make really fine sawdust that floats around in the air and ultimately lands in my coffee, so not a fan. There's some comments that given a lot of praise for Japanese saws. I've never tried them. If anybody here has tried them and has some input, drop a comment, let me know, because I've got a couple now in my Amazon wish list that I want to try probably next year sometime. So I hope this video is valuable for somebody that might be starting out, thinking of starting to do a little bit of hand tool work. And if you're already a hand tool woodworker, let me know what would be on your list, what you think that I am totally missing that you would never be without. I'm interested to hear it, so drop a comment below.